The story begins with a group of friends discussing their upcoming trip to this popular attraction known as Deadman's Wonderland, as what seems like a normal day for their classroom quickly turns into a never-ending nightmare. They are outside the classroom and quickly wipe out their entire class in an instant, leaving only Ganta alive. Not only that, the man in red place a red orb in his chest, causing him to pass out and wake up in the hospital. He just became the main suspect in the murder of his entire class. A suspicious lawyer was among the police who visited him, and this lawyer promised to defend him in the upcoming trial. But on the day of the trial, the lawyer told him that he had given false evidence. It led to Ganta getting the death penalty, and now the death row Ganta was then dressed as a Wonderland and placed in a penitentiary or prison. And his classmates were supposed to go on a field trip in this hellish Wonderland. All inmates wear neck bands that monitor them 24/7. These neck bands also pump poison on the wearer every minute, so they need to eat these candies every 3 days if they want to combat the poison and prevent them from dying. More on those candies later on. In Ganta's first day on the Wonderland, as he was working in the yard, a strange white-haired girl named Shiro approached him and Loki tried to kill him, and in a not-so-accidental fashion a bomb was detonated, destroying one of the buildings where Ganta and Shiro is directly under. It's like someone's testing him, but we still don't know who, vowing not to die as the big debris quickly falls into Ganta and Shiro. The orb in Ganta's chest starts to activate and his blood forms into a weapon which shields him and his inmate from death. And then we cut to an ominous figure which is revealed to be the lawyer who is actually working for the prison. He was the one behind the bomb detonation, and also he has a weird fascination towards Ganta, but we still don't know at this point what his overall goal is to really showcase how terrible of a place Deadman Wonderland is. Ganta and Shiro participate in a dog race show inside the Wonderland. Whoever wins this game gets 100,000 cast points or kip, which is the currency inside the prison. The candies that I mentioned earlier are worth 100,000 kip each. And that's Ganta's main goal, to earn enough ki to be able to buy a candy before he dies of poisoning. So he and Shiro play this deadly game where dangerous traps and deadly contraptions await them. In the finals, only 3 of the participants, including Ganta and Shiro, survived, and in the final moments, Ganta throws away the winning prize in order to save Shiro, which is a very heartfelt moment, but this means in just a few hours he'll die because he has no money and no candy to prevent the poison in his neck. This is where Yo comes in, Ganta's cellmate. For reasons still unknown, he's very fond of Ganta and actually gave Ganta a candy for free and even treated him to ice cream at the yard. And surprisingly, the man in red showed up again and begins terrorizing other inmates. Ganta, with his pent-up rage surfacing after seeing the man in red, started to activate his powers and fires a blast of blood energy which drove off this killer. In the next scene, we see a group of important-looking people in a round table discussing matters regarding the prison. One of them is the lawyer, who is now known as Tamaki, the promoter, and now we also learn that the man in red actually came from inside the prison and is regarded as their biggest secret moments. After we see the lawyer, now known as Tamaki, chatting with Yo about Ganta, turns out Yo is actually working for Tamaki in exchange for CP. Is after the incident in the yard, Ganta ended up in the infirmary. There he heard some inmates talking about a mysterious man in red restraints who was permanently locked in the block for his destructive abilities. Gonzo thought it was the same red man, so he immediately went to block. At the same time, the head warden decided to put the prison on full lockdown after the whole Redman incident. Gonza is currently going to block, and the head warden is chasing him so he can kill him eventually, and either with Ganta or Ye quickly explains to them that there is no block, there are only 6 blocks ATF in the prison blocks. But Shiro, on the other hand, knows where the hidden G block is, so they are now on their way to their destination, and the killer robot is following them shortly after they reach the G block, and the killer robot is getting ready to kill them. The man in the red harness breaks out of the G block, destroys the killer robot, and makes his badass entrance. It has now moved on to the Senji verse, also known as Crow Senji, and Ganta used, but Ganza immediately realizes that Senji is not the red man, so the fight eventually stopped. But in this fight, we learn from Senji that there are a few people in this prison who can also use the same blood technique. They are called Deadman, and they are infected by the branch of sin. That's why they're able to use their blood as a weapon. The guards of the facility immediately arrive at G block and fire tranquilizers at Senji and Ganta, which put them both to sleep. But that's not the last time they're going to meet each other. Ganta is now in the infirmary again, but this time it's a little different. There he meets the lawyer who started this whole thing off. Tamaki then explains to Ganta what's going to happen to him moving forward. First, he's going to need to participate in the corpse festival. If you think the dog race or any attractions in Deadman Wonderland are brutal, then you haven't seen anything. Corpse Carnival is a tournament setting where dead mans were infected with the branch of sin battle it out. It's a death match between overpowered individuals, and it's brutal. If Gonza wins enough rounds, he'll eventually meet the red man who massacred his entire class, and also win some candies, and that's the perfect motivation. Ganta needs to participate in this bloody tournament. The show doesn't really wait around and immediately starts off the first fight. It's gone to the Woodpecker versus Senju the Crow. At first glance, the winner of the fight is already decided. Ganta is a newbie and Senji is a veteran, so it's no question that Senju would win. Ganta fired off a few blood blasts, but immediately felt the effects of his blood loss and started to faint a little. This allowed Ganta to bombard Senji with his blood scythe, which immediately knocked Ganta out, but Ganta stood up with all his willpower alone and concocted a strategy on the spot. He fired his bloodshot into the air, which destroyed the chains of the big object at the top. This object fell right into Senji, but he sliced it off rather easily. At that split second, Ganta managed to get in close to Senji and gathered a big blood energy in his palm and fired at point-blank range into Senji's chest, which blasted him off and resulted in Ganta winning the fight. But of course, the losers who didn't die at the match get punishment. As Ganta was resting on his bed after his win, the TV near him was a broadcast of the loser's punishment. He watched as Senji lost his right eye, which put Ganta into a state of shock. Not long after the first match, Ganta's second match starts against Minashuki, who is revealed to be Yo's sister. She is the reason why Yo entered Deadman Wonderland to save her. In the middle of Ganta and Minatsuki's fight, Yo actually snuck into the stage, and they had this whole emotional family moment. And then in the second half of the story, we went to end the game with a headbutt. After we had a match against Karako, for example, we shift our focus from the Corpse Carnival to the Revolution. Its main purpose is to destroy the dead man. Outside the Wonderland, here the criminals have joined the fighters, a special task force created by Tamaki to fight the dead. They are the most heinous criminals inside the prison, and they have the ability to neutralize the dead man's blood. Has the ability after Ganta decides to join the Chain of Scars. He meets with the leader of the group, Nagi, who then discusses their entire escape plan with the group, which they execute in conjunction with the government's annual prison inspection. They can take advantage of the lax security inside the prison during this time, and so the day of the escape has come. The plan is to go to the Rokuro control room where their leader Nagi and their spies are so they can activate the elevator. The remaining members to the outside world, and in Ganta's hand is a chip that contains all the horrible things that have transpired inside the prison, and their goal is to show this to the entire world so they can close Deadman Wonderland forever. But it's not gonna be easy for him. Nagi and Rokuro get confronted by a child undertaker, Hibana, and the group gets pursued by a killer robot that spits acid. What's worse is in the control room, Rokuro reveals himself as a double spy and is actually working for Tamaki. And in a close battle with Hibana, Nagi won by a split hair and then punches Rokuro in the face, which enabled him to push the lever that activated the lift to the outside world. But little did they know that another Undertaker by the name of Azumi waits for them on the other side. Most of the group die because of these surprise ambushes, and the chip that Gonza held is actually a bomb. But they managed to avoid that disaster thanks to Shiro, who threw it into the fire, injuring herself in the process. All of these different scenarios escalate to the point of no return, where we learn that Tamaki is actually the son of the director of this prison. And that same director has ties to Shiro. On top of that, what this old man wants is to die by the hands of Shiro, but not the Shiro that we know, because it turns out that she has a split personality, and this split personality of Shiro eventually kills the director, and it's not explicitly stated, but she might also be the red man who massacred Ganta's whole class, and the one who implanted the red orb into Ganzen. Now that the director is dead, Tamaki is now the new director of Deadman Wonderland, and we now enter the final arc. Nagi is captured the remnants of the Scar Chain, gather once more in their secret hideout, and Ganta is mad at Shiro for throwing the chip into the fire. He still doesn't know at this point that the chip was a bomb. So that's why as Nagi is being drugged by Azami the Undertaker, Rokuro the double spy arrives at the secret hideout along with some Undertakers to kill the remnants of the Scar Chain. This is where the group realizes that the chip was a bomb, because Rokuro tells them powerless. The remnants of the Scar Chain get captured rather easily, but then another dead man arrives and saves the day. Senji the Crow now obliterates all the Undertakers with ease. After that, they tried to recruit him to the cause, but he refused because he prefers being alone. Ganta, feeling powerless, seeks the help of Senji so he could train him before they launch their next attack. And as Ganta trains with Senji, the group launches their attack without him because they don't want him to get involved anymore. And just like the last one, this attack also failed. Kuroko gets captured alongside Shiro, who just happens to be there. The capture was also broadcast to the whole prison, which alerted Ganta. Ganta then runs to save Kakarot and Shiro. And as he arrives on the scene, he's greeted by a lot of Undertakers headed by Azumi and Nagi, who is now the enemy due to the drugs that were pumped into him. Nagi then wreaks havoc on the scene. but immediately regains his consciousness. It is now Ganta and Nagi's Ozumi Ozami, then reveals his trump card, which blasted a hole in Anagami's stomach. He also stabs Karako in the chest, which angered Ganta in even more desperation. Ganta made a final blast, which destroyed Azami, so after the battle, Kuroko won the battle, and the others fled the place. Tamaki still rules the place, and Ganza and Shiro are sitting on the rooftop, and still this dreams of leaving hell and riding a horse. Ferris wheel together, of course. Don't forget to support me by liking the video.